Hey guys, thank you so much for joining this webinar. I believe everybody is staying safe at your home. To introduce about myself, this is Mani Parthasarathi, founder of Habile Technologies. Habile Technologies provide a digital lending platform to NBFCs and MFIs across 9 countries. We also have Mr. Jitin Vashina as our speaker. Hi, Jitin.
Hi, Mani.
Yeah. A background about Jitin. He's the founder and he's the managing director of FinFriends NBFC under the brand name of Rupee Reddy. He is the Economic Times Young Leader of the Year 2014, and his main core for expertise is on retail finance. Thank you so much for joining, Jitin.
Thank you, Mani, for having me here.
Sure. Can you please give a background about your company, Jitin?
So we are in the business of facilitating digital lending solutions to Indian customers, and we currently operate in 25 cities across the country, facilitating loans for people. So we have a captive NBFC, and we're a fintech company by the brand name of Rupee Reddy. And since our inception in 2017, we have facilitated loans for lakhs of customers now across the country. So we work with our own captive NBFC and with a group of other NBFCs as well in this business. So that's about who we are. Our focus is on underserved segment of customers by definition, because we see that there's a lot of value and a lot of potential there.
Excellent. So a background about the current situation, right? So right now, I just now saw the statistics. It's like we are hitting 50,000 active corona cases right now. More than 85% of the startups are struggling because of this COVID, and we all know that this will continue to exist for the next few months. And a few days back, we have got an announcement from government that 20 lakh crore is going to distribute to boost our economy. So we understand that there is a chaotic situation is happening, and I personally felt that NBFC is a very important sector, should also get addressed at this pandemic, and even all the NBFCs and MFI should know what should do and what not to do, right, at this particular chaotic situation. And that is the reason why we are conducting this webinar, Jitin. So with your industry experience, definitely it's going to benefit our audience. To give a background about our audience, it's basically they are from NBFCs, MFIs, Nidhi companies and all, right? So without any further delay, let me step into the webinar. It's going to be completely Q&A session. I'll be asking the list of questions which I have, and Jitin will be responding to that with his experience. And at the end of the session, we also have a Q&A to an audience. An audience can, meanwhile, if you have any queries, you can just have we have a chat window where you can ask questions, and our moderator will be giving those questions to me. I can share it to Jitin as well. Okay. All right. We'll kickstart, Jitin. Fine.
Sure, Mani.
All right. My audio is clear, right, Jitin?
Yes, it is clear.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, Jitin, this COVID-19 situation, right? This is going to continue for the next few months. And is it going to be a good or bad time for our lenders? What is your feel? It is a good time or a bad time for lenders?
So I think, look, what we are witnessing, Mani, is unprecedented for mankind and for businesses. The world hasn't seen this kind of a screeching halt that the world has come to, economies have come to, mankind has come to. We are all confined to, the 4 walls of our houses, etc. And this is a global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So businesses have been impacted, livelihoods of people have been impacted. So I think it would be very fair to say that lending institutions are not immune to this particular slowdown. And I think it's a very, it's a significant event which we see.
Right.
So definitely I cannot say that this is a great time for lending community, because it is not perhaps a great time for any business, right? And lending is core to other businesses also. And if you see in India already over the last 18 to 24 months, there was a slowdown in overall lending situation because of some broader issues that we were witnessing in some large lending companies, and there was a trickle-down impact which the country was recovering from and the sector was recovering from. So this, was perhaps ill-timed for the sector specifically, So I cannot say that it is, it is not challenging. It is definitely a challenging time for the industry and everybody alike, right?
Okay.
Having said that, I think as we see the market, we do realize that, as you rightly mentioned, that this is not something which can disappear overnight. I think governments across the globe have understood it, and the governments across the globe, including the government of India, has advised people to now start thinking of life by including COVID as a means of, let's say, which will keep hanging around, perhaps in our lifetime for some time. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, lending companies and NBFCs specifically have also understood that there is going to be a short-term impact, there is going to be a medium-term recovery process, and there has to be a long-term vision that companies have to incorporate to make sure that they don't lose sight of the long-term while taking care of whatever we are faced with in the short term. So in the short term, there is cash flow pressure. In the short term, there is slackening in demand. Demand obviously will not be there because we are not spending on items that we were across demographic profiles. And obviously collections is impacted. So cash flow is impacted and the portfolio quality can also be impacted. So I would say that this is a very challenging time for the lending community in general. But I would also say in the same vein that this is something that for young lending companies like us, it has happened very early in our stage of evolution. So this will also teach us a lot. This will also help us look at the supply chain, the business models, product structures, cost structures very, very carefully. And I think companies who are able to wade through these troubled waters will emerge stronger. So the key is to make sure that you go through this troubled period and then make sure that you utilize this period to make some telling changes in your supply chain, make some wins for yourself, your customers, and your business at large, and then hope to emerge when these clouds disappear. So that would be my answer for the impact on the lending community.
Okay. So NBFC is also going to have a challenging times, right? So got it. And one more thing is like when I collect the questions for this webinar, right? One of the NBFCs was asking, one of the borrower has impacted Corona case for them. The borrower is also impacted. So as an NBFC, like, what are all the steps to be taken if a borrower has got a COVID-19 case? Can you explain that, Jitin?
So I think, as you said, there are about 70,000 plus people now in India impacted, 50,000 plus cases. So it is fair to assume that there would be borrowers in that particular set. I think the regulator has already undertaken a step wherein moratorium of repayment has been offered to customers, and NBFCs have been permitted to offer such moratorium to customers. So I think that's the first step, because if you are impacted by Corona, chances are that you will be quarantined. Obviously, you will not be able to work, your livelihood will be impacted, your income would be impacted, and therefore your ability to repay your EMIs at that point in time will definitely be impaired. So by that logic, I think moratorium becomes a logical means of handling such a situation. And the regulator has provided a 3-month moratorium and has permitted NBFCs to offer that 3-month moratorium as per their, let's say, assessment of cases. So I would say that is one way. The other is that I think, in this time, I would also say Corona or no Corona, right, for a particular customer. The lending community and the lenders will have to work closely with their customers, because they will have to understand what they are going through. Some of them genuinely do not have the means to repay. They would need some time. And I think that's something which lenders have realized. And we fundamentally feel that it is important to work with your customers right now and make sure that you can get through this phase together. Because it's not that businesses are not impacted. Businesses are also impacted and significantly impacted. And businesses have to also look out for their own sustainability, especially young businesses. So there has to be a balance which has to be arrived at between the 3 stakeholders of any business, which is the customer, the employees, and the shareholders of the company, such that the company remains a going concern, customers remain happy, and you can get through this with limited damage. And obviously businesses have to look out for their employees as well. So I would say that balance has to be very finely managed.
Okay. All right. So that triggers another question, Jitin. So for the next 3 months, right, what kind of the customer expectation would evolve to change, right? So earlier, pre-COVID, we would have understand a little bit about the customer and business segments, and post COVID. So how will be the change, right? In terms of the customer expectation, it could be a business or it could be an individual, right? What would be the customer expectations after post-COVID, Jitin?
See, I think customer expectations from a lending perspective, one thing is that this episode has taught everybody that being digital or digitizing your supply chain is not an option anymore. It is just not a buzzword which is discussed in boardrooms. I think at CEO level, CXO level, this has to be very, taken very, very seriously, and it has to be taken in letter as well as spirit. So this will call for a sweeping change across the organization's DNA when it comes to approaching digitization. And we feel fundamentally that this will become very, very powerful. I also believe that even larger institutions, including banking institutions, whatever they were supposed to do on digitizing their supply chains, maybe over the next 3 years, I think would be prioritized, and would perhaps we would see that change in the next 6 to 12 months itself. So this entire cycle will force businesses to behave differently. It's already forcing us to behave differently, and I think that's actually a good thing, because digitization has tremendous benefits. So from a customer perspective, I think the customer expectations also will get aligned towards the digitized way of life. So they will be more happy to, they'll be happier to apply in a presence-less, contact-less manner, when it comes to lending products or any financial service product, I would say for that matter. The entire supply chain, or the entire, let's say, mechanism would also be, when it comes to service, when it comes to collections, etc., will also be digitized. And I think that's something the customers will willingly accept and rather desire. So companies which are ahead in the curve of digitization stand to gain. Customers definitely, even if you see today, even if it comes to agriculture, we've seen that the farmer has found a way to send the produce to the customer, and the payments are being done in a contactless manner, right? So it is at a grassroots level we are witnessing that change for our food, which is coming to our houses, and you can see how the digital ecosystem has stepped up in this particular phase. So I would say on the lending side, lending companies will have to be much more sophisticated, and digitization will have to be taken very, very seriously. And I see there is tremendous opportunity in that particular area.
Okay. So there is a saying called the technology is no more an enabler and is going to be the driving engine for the future, right? I think that what to say, it's going to connect with your answer, Jitin. So how from a Rupee standpoint, right? How are you basically overcome all these challenges? How are you basically navigating this entire process, Jitin?
See, I think I would say that the basic fabric of our company, it hinges on digital and digitization. And as I said, we are a digital lending company. We were one of the first digital NBFCs to have secured license in the country. And we were very clear that the entire supply chain that we have to build since inception was focused on digital. So whether it is digital marketing, acquisition, assessment of a particular customer, right, risk, underwriting, collections, service, all of our work streams were already digital. And of course, during this phase, we have leveraged that particular matter very, very aggressively. We are a company which can assess loan applications 24/7 and actually disburse also 24/7. We have only two physical presence in terms of geographical presence in the country, but we cover 25 cities across the country, right? So from our business perspective, I would say that we were, from a basic supply chain perspective, we were always there because this was our desire, ambition, and business focus. Definitely during COVID, we have seen that, especially when it comes to our employees, we were not able to open offices. Our contact centers were not able to operate under one roof. So all our agents, as they say, they are not even working from home. I would say they were forced to work from hometowns, because a lot of our, service employees or collection employees or sales employees, they've had to go back to their, hometowns. A lot of them come to, let's say, big metros to, for employment opportunities. So we as a company, we had to enable not only work from home, but also work from, let's say, hometown kind of a setup. And I think it's a good thing, because we have realized that there are several efficiencies that one can draw from such an arrangement, right? And I'll be honest, it is not something that we had seen in our lifetime. And I was not a great supporter of, let's say, the work from home culture. I have been baptized into this culture. I have seen that there is tremendous value now that we've had to do this. I can see that the efficiency has definitely gone up, right?
Gone
So
up.
the overall,
Okay.
yeah, of course, the overall productivity has gone up. The only thing is that I feel that, employees are perhaps stretching a little more than they otherwise do, which
Okay.
is, it's not normal because people don't realize how much time that they are working for. So, I have seen that people in my company, they start pretty early, they keep working till late. We do have conversations about it as to how to manage our time, how to not forget that we need, some personal time as well. But I
Right.
fundamentally feel that, and I think it's across businesses, we speak to people, and I've
Mm-hmm.
spoken to several businesses, right? We have seen that across India Inc., the employees have risen to this challenge, right? Businesses also have had to respond to this challenge. There are benefits of this, which I think businesses will continue to leverage. So that is a big positive that I see. When it comes to us, Rupee Reddy, we understand there is some, drop in demand. There is also cash flow pressure. We are no
Okay.
different than any other lending company. So we have also used this time to venture into new businesses. We have launched new products, right? So we have launched a product wherein we would be now underwriting loan applications with employers. So we see that there is a lot of demand in payroll advance. So we have tied up with a few companies already to enable employers to give, let's say, some extra money to people, right?
Wow.
That's one product that we are starting. We are entering school fee financing as a product, which will be a long tail product, in terms of, let's say, yeah. So that's another area that we have seen that there is demand. We've already up with, schools with cumulative, let's say, customer base of almost 50,000 plus, and we are increasing focus on that area.
Okay.
And the last, and I would say the most interesting area that we decided to get into is an initiative called Go Digital. So we are a digital company, we are a lending company. So we decided to set up a business wherein we will now help other lenders in the country to become digital across the entire supply chain. So in fact, we've launched it only yesterday, and already there is, significant demand that we see from our, I would say, the ecosystem, the lending ecosystem, which are our peer companies also. So we don't see them, we don't see that we should hoard, our knowledge, whatever we've acquired. Our Indian knowledge, and because of our roots, which are international, we have exposure across multiple countries across the globe. So we want to give it back to the industry because we feel that India is too large a market for, to winner take all market. This is not a winner take all, take all market, and there is room for everybody. So we have launched this initiative, and I do see that there is tremendous demand because all businesses will have to necessarily go towards digitization money. And I think that's something which is, these are the areas where we are working in this particular phase.
Wonderful, wonderful. A quick check with the audience. Is the audio between myself and Jitin is clear? You can type your comments in the right hand side box. Yes, all right. Thanks, Anurag. Thanks, Sesh. All right. So we have got few questions also. Jitin, you like to take it up now?
Sure.
We've got few. Yeah. So Anurag has asked this question, right? In general, the accreditation for unsecured product is mostly depend upon the income assessment, but now the situation is very uncertain, and customers with job or without job won't be able to show the income continuity. I mean, because of the salary delay or hold or something like that. Right? So what is the best way to do the income assessment and checking the continuity of the income? It's a very valid question because, of course, the government has informed all the employers to pay the salary, but there are a lot of uncertain situations are happening where the employers are not able to pay them, right? So there comes the income continuity problem. And how do we basically assess for those things? Yeah.
So I think it's a very good question, Anurag. We see that across the lending community, right? Especially for personal loans, if I would say so. Bulk of the decisions have been made basis cash flow historically, wherein you understand what the cash flow of the customer is, what is the stability of income for that particular customer, and therefore you make your decisions. Of course, you also look at the credit behavior of the customer, and this has been traditional way of underwriting. Over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, specifically, or maybe 3 to 4 years, when the fintech lending quantum in this country has increased, in line with what's happened across the globe, there has been a lot of focus on alternate data and the use of alternate data. And this alternate data could be social, behavioral, how you behave in general, how regularly do you pay your bills, how comfortable you are in terms of your, general financial behavior. Do you save anything at all? Do you spend a lot? Do you have multiple, let's say, exposures? And there's also a lot of data which you could use from mobile phones, because you're able to get some databases, consents that you can obtain from customers. And I think that also has become a very powerful way of underwriting a particular application or a particular customer. I would say the one telling difference now, pre-COVID and post-COVID, and I think we joke, within our company, that this is like, before Corona and after Corona. So the BC, it's a new age. So before Corona, I think you had some set parameters you were having. Let's say you were, maybe as a business, you were comfortable in one or the other way in which you were underwriting, and you were slowly progressing towards more diverse parameters which you could assess for making credit decisions. But I would say now, past may not be an indicator of future. Look, I could be in a comfortable job, I could be in a comfortable business, it was going well. Suddenly this tsunami of an event has hit us, and I am not able to predict what my future will be like, right? If you see in India, there is a survey out there by CMIE which says that 84% of Indian households have witnessed some sort of a drop in income, right? And I think there's also a survey out there which says that there is acute shortage in overall, let's say, money that households have currently, and they cannot sustain for a very long period of time. Of course, the government has, been helping, and the recent measures which have been announced by the government of India, they will certainly go a long way in stoking up demand in the country by, providing liquidity, because most of it is liquidity and guarantees, right? Plus some cash transfers. So I would say that will make a difference. But from an underwriting perspective, I think lending companies will have to assess cases much deeper, and that should not rely only on the past, because even a credit score for a person who was for the past 5 years had a credit footprint, right? If now has a situation that over the now 3 to 6 months or 6 to 9 months, there is, let's say, uncertainty in the income, patterns, or there's a drop in income, it has to be ascertained. And I also feel that there has to be a mix of, let's say, some traditional plus new age underwriting. I think this episode has also made us realize that there is benefits of both, and I think business will have to balance it very carefully. So while in the in the older format, a loan officer used to sit with you, conduct a 40-minute interview, right? You would walk into the branch, and he or she would make notes, and then finally a decision would be made. But of course, that was a very different way of doing business. And digital companies use a very different way, or new age companies use a very different way of doing business. I think in a nutshell, lenders will have to understand the present situation of the borrower much, much better. And I think there will be some models which will emerge, around that. We are also thinking and working on some areas around that as a company. And I think as an ecosystem, it will also, develop.
All right. And we've got one more question, which is also another interesting thing. Saugata Goswami has said that considering the MSME segment, right? So full digitization is, how does it even possible, right? Most of them are not filing the GST on time. Still they are running in cash economy, right? So of course that exists, right? But even post-COVID, that the number of cases will just increase, right? So how do we need to focus on that? Yeah.
See, I would say, I'll first answer that question, in a slightly different way. Of course, Saugata has asked a very interesting question. Look, tax compliance has been a problem, and I think the law of the land understands that. We as industry participants understand that. But sometimes there is an event which creates a pull. Now look at payments, for example, right? I don't remember when was the last time I used currency in the last 50 days, because wherever I'm spending using digital means, right? Dial back 5 years, it wouldn't have been possible. Now, MSMEs also will realize that in their entire supply chain today, there are areas in supply chain which have been able to withstand this pressure and this, jolt, I would say, this whiplash. And those areas are digital, because transport came to a halt, supply chains, logistics came to a halt. If you had a line of credit which was based on somebody visiting you or you visiting somebody, that came to a halt. If you wanted to obtain money or repay somebody, in cash, it also came to a halt because you couldn't meet anybody, etc., etc. So I would say that the overarching demand towards digitization and a natural pull towards digitization has been created. It has been created in all sectors. You name the sector, and we understand that there is a big role of digitization. Now, how aggressive it can be per sector, I'm not commenting that it will be equally applicable, but I think in the financial services space, we all could pay our insurance premium because we have been habituated to pay it, let's say digitally. Those who were in the business of digital lending, they could lend and they could collect also. A lot of people ask me, how do you collect? We collect 100% digitally. So MSMEs, if they were habituated to, let's say, utilization of digital services, which also means that they'll have to become compliant because somebody out there would want to check their GST returns to understand their credit worthiness. I think it's like a circle, and people will have to understand the merits and therefore comply, because forced compliance has taken a lot of time and perhaps will take. So there has to be a reverse pressure. I think the situation has created that reverse pressure, which is a positive reverse pressure.
Okay. All right. So we have more than 8 questions to be answered. We'll come back to that. I think most of the questions will be answered if we allow Jitin to talk for a few more minutes. So yeah. Another, this is the most raised question by our audience, Jitin. Which product will be most suitable for the next few months? Which loan product that we would like to give to our borrowers? Yeah.
So I think this is an answer. This is the question that the entire industry is looking for an answer. And if you see,
right.
We are currently lending and we have been. So we see that the current demand, I can tell you, is largely around things like groceries, right? Some people don't have money to buy groceries, medical expenses, school fee. So basic items which are helping us sustain, because none of us are able to spend a lot of money if you see. I mean, where will you spend, right? So there is an essential spend and there's a non-essential spend. The entire non-essential inventory and supply chain has been impaired, and maybe rightly so. So currently, I think as individuals, we have realized that what is it that is absolutely essential, which is like a binary event. It's a 0 or 1. So if it is 0, you can't live without it. So that part of business, I would say that as the economy comes back, as and when it does, and it will take some time as per wide assessment, the focus would remain on essential spend. And if there is an impairment in ability of people to make money, they will continue to focus on borrowing so as to meet demands which are essential in nature, right? And I think again there have been surveys which are conducted that it's summertime in the bulk of India, but is everybody going to perhaps rush to buy an air conditioner if they don't have one? Perhaps not, because currently households want to conserve as much cash as possible and perhaps use money to meet necessary demands only. And it's going to be a function of the economy, right? So as and when the economy comes back, and first of all, the lockdown has to be lifted, as the government is indicating that now we have to focus on livelihoods also, which appears to be the right decision, because that's what the entire globe is now focusing on. Slowly but surely, people will get back to work. They will get back their incomes. Their predictability of income will come back, whether it's a small shop owner or whether it's a big industrialist. I think today everybody is impacted. So this has been an event which has created a level play field, I would say. Of course, the levels are different, but everybody is equally impacted, right? So the thing is that people will first focus on essential spend, and therefore as businesses, we will have to fine tune our products to make sure that they become relevant to financing essential needs. Right? And that is what we are doing. So for example, I did say that we are looking at school fee, because we understand for the next 3 to 6 months or maybe 9 months, it could be an area which could be important. We are looking at employer payroll financing, because we understand that employers don't have much cash, right? Cash flows are dried up, but employees have more needs. So how would you balance that? So if a lending company can come there, so maybe we are looking at that segment. So I think for the short term, that will remain focused. Then discretionary demand will again come back. And in the discretionary demand, you will have all other items which always have been there. Just that they will have to be served differently. And when I say served differently, it has to be digitized. I think the focus on digitization and the serving of the entire servicing angle of the customer, I think that would change.
Perfect. Okay. So from my understanding, anything with respect to the essentials, we may have to think our loan products accordingly, and school fees, financing, and then this one more thing that you said, right? What was that?
So, advance
The
loans to employees.
loans, yeah, employers, yes. Early salary.
It will also be business loans money. So look, if I'm a small shopkeeper, right, or an MSME, I want to get back to work and I want some money to restart my business because I don't have, but I see demand. So that can also be a very interesting area. These are just two examples I'm giving. I mean, there could be so I think there has to be an assessment which has to be conducted by businesses as to what are essential. And if I know this is my livelihood, I would want to invest in it, right, as a business person.
Right.
And if I don't want to invest in it, then I would want money to invest in it. So I think that item has to be looked at very carefully.
Perfect. Another question, which is for the cash flow. As right now, everybody is suffering from that. So basically, for an NBFC, right, how to increase the cash flow? If we can give some few suggestions, that would be great help, Jitin. What kind of activities that for the present situation? What kind of activities that an NBFC has to perform to increase their cash flow? Yeah.
See, given the fact that the RBI had permitted NBFCs to offer moratorium to customers, and several customers have availed of such moratorium, right? Depending upon the demographic profile of that customer. So we have also seen that in our portfolio, we have seen 30 to 40% customers availing moratorium. Some of them have decided not to, because they do understand that the interest will continue to accrue and they will have to suddenly pay back. So from a cash flow perspective, one is that lending companies have realized that collections, which is cash flow from customer, has definitely gone down, right? The other expenses for a company are direct and indirect expenses. So when I say direct expenses, they were related to you doing lending business, and indirect expenses are fixed in nature, which you have to continue, let's say, serving if you want to remain, let's say, in business, right? So most companies have, first of all, looked at their direct expenses, because I think the lending outflow also has definitely gone down across the country. The data is out there that demand has also slackened, and definitely supply of money has also slackened across the country. So the direct expenses have gone down. And some businesses, including businesses like us, we have decided to take a very incisive look at each and every expense, whether it is direct or indirect, right, during this time. We have also looked at, and I think generally businesses also are doing that or would do that, we're also looking at all components of supply chain to understand that how is it that we can make it more efficient, such that even when, once the COVID-19, the episode becomes a little more relaxed, we can continue to accrue those benefits even in future. So whatever, let's say, impact that a company will have on maybe bad loans, because definitely the bad loan portfolio will go up, and lack of cash flow, which means that you have to infuse some capital and there's a cost of funds. So you want to optimize that. So whatever gains you would make out of direct expenses in future will help you possibly navigate these 3 months. And because I fundamentally feel that the next 90 days are going to be the most difficult. Starting last month, I think it's a 120-day period, and then we will see some recovery, etc. Right? That's what our estimate currently indicates. So that is very important. Looking at all components of supply chain, making it as efficient as you can, and preparing for the long haul, because these benefits will not disappear even when COVID does, right? So that's the benefit. It's a perennial benefit. It's a perennial benefit that you can estimate and you can create if you are smart about it and active about it. So that's one. In terms of indirect expenses, again, we do see that, for example, real estate as an expense for businesses is significant, right? Whether it is for any business. And currently, all of us are working from home. It's not that we have shut shop. Right? You have large IT companies out there saying that, look, we may allow 50% or 70% of our workforce to have some flexibility. And I think this also will allow businesses to make some savings when it comes to real estate, because it is a very sizable cost for businesses and which is fixed in nature, right? Irrespective of how much business do you do. So I think such expenses, this is one example. There are other fixed expenses also that you could look at. And that is also something that one has to manage. So I think in the near term, all businesses have tried to conserve as much cash as possible, cut expenses wherever you can, to spend wherever you need to, perhaps to spend a little bit more to make sure that the efficiencies are, let's say, prepared, the structure is prepared, such that you can benefit from it in future also. It's a good expense. So I think that's the way to look at cash flow. And as the collections improves, then you also get cash flow back. The other way is that if you're also able to get some more capital, some debt capital, if you're able to raise some debt currently, and as, let's say, the government of India has indicated in the latest announcement, if that starts trickling in, then of course, that's also something which businesses will need currently, and that will also help them in their position of management of cash, essentially, because a lot of them have repayment obligations. If you have debt, not everybody could get moratorium on repayment obligations if you're an institution. So I think that also is a cash flow problem. So this will also help balance it. So that's what I would suggest.
Perfect. And see, I also speaking to a couple of NBFCs. They are to increase the cash flow. They have opened their NCDs, CPs. So will the moratorium, which RBI said, right, will this also be applicable for the debt market instruments like NCDs, CPs? Chetan?
See, I think, my personal view here is that, let's say banks and lending institutions were permitted to give moratorium to end customers because end customers did not have much money. And that was the primary objective of the regulator, perhaps in my understanding, to allow that moratorium. But when it comes to bonds, the end payment itself may be owed to consumers, right? So what happens is that the cash eventually had to go to the customer. So any stalling or delaying of such payments under the regulatory ecosystem that we operate will create further hardships for the subscribers of such bonds. And a large part of it is also, let's say, subscribed by mutual funds, and therefore retail investors come into play. So I would say that, and I have also, and whatever we are understanding of the situation right now, that such deferment will also lead to deferment of payment obligations from institutions to retail customers. And that will further exacerbate the situation because the end customer needs the money back, right? And corporate bonds, almost 1 lakh crore of corporate bonds, I think, are set to mature by end of May. And again, I think about 80,000 crore of commercial paper is set to mature by the end of May. So I would say that this is a very, let's say, sensitive period. And I think the right mechanism here is to refinance such bonds, perhaps by the use of the TLTRO facility, which has been made available. And if there is also coverage of papers which are not, let's say, the blue chip papers, right? Then I think that also will create some situation wherein institutions can refinance, and hence it becomes easier rather than giving moratorium which impacts the end customer. So I think that's my view in this regard.
All right. One more interesting question from an audience is that do you see work from home become a culture for an NBFC? Chetan? Work from home become a culture.
See, as I said that, I think there is no set pattern to this question, right? I could say, and I did say in the earlier part of our conversation, that we as a business, we could operate seamlessly because by definition, we are digital first as a business, right? So we did not face hardships which could be faced by companies which are not prepared for this. So, if you don't have the basic chassis to operate in a presence-less system, right, then it can possibly not be very easy. And it will depend from company to company, I would say. But if you are ready, and if you have an ecosystem such that people can operate remotely, then I would say that businesses will definitely look into this, because it has been very clear that you can operate like this, right? And there are savings at large, there are savings on time, there are savings on commute time, commute costs for employees, for employers, you save real estate costs. So it could be a win-win situation. I'm not saying for all roles, but I think there could be roles which could be identified. There could be, situations which could be identified. It could become, let's say, for some part of let's say a month or a quarter, you could experiment with something like this. I think that this will definitely be looked at very seriously.
Okay. So moving on to the next question. So we have very less amount of time, Jitin. So I'm just ask some few key questions. Okay. Okay. So the next is the disbursement, right? Do I need to disperse for the next few months, or is it really even possible to do a disbursement for the next few months? So what is your view on that, Jitin?
See, I think again, depends on the kind of product that you are focusing on. Look, if institutions are aware that there is a moratorium which has to be offered to the customers, so then they are aware that the repayment will not come, let's say, for a set amount of time, right? But having said that, I think as per our interpretation, loans booked after the month of March were not applicable under moratorium, as the RBI has indicated. So I think the big question there is that, are you able to identify pools of customers wherein you are comfortable lending and the customer is also comfortable taking that obligation? Because let's not forget the customer's angle. The customer may want money, but the customer may not be able to afford this, expensive situation of debt getting, let's say, the quantum of debt increasing in one's portfolio or obligation portfolio. So I think it has to be a function of the demand that is getting created, and I spoke about that earlier. It has to be a function of the financial, let's say, comfort of institutions as to what kind of exposure are you willing to take, what risk assessment are you willing to do, and I think then identify pockets of such opportunities. But definitely, if I am a lending company, then it is my core source of revenue, and it is applicable to all lending companies, right? So without loan book getting created, there is no revenue. So people will look at alternate sources of revenue also, but some amount of lending has to continue, and I think that's how the economy will get back. So that trust deficit, which already was there pre-COVID, largely it was trust deficit, right, where the money was not flowing, I think has been impacted further now with the consumption deficit and the quality deficit. But the institutions and all let's say participants of this particular ecosystem, which is lending, will have to come together to start solving this problem bit by piece, bit by bit, because it has to be solved.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's get into technology related questions, Jatin. Okay, so as an NBFC, I have a list of customers. I have already say 5,000 customers or 10,000 customers, right? I have their demographic data. With that data, right? So what kind of realistic business projections that I can do with technology, right? So what kind of business projection that an NBFC can do with their demographic data?
See, I think the entire projection of future business will, as I said, that you'll have to find pools of customers who, let's say, are the right fit for the products that you want to focus on, and they're also capable of repaying the debt that they owe to lenders. So data will become very important. Demographic profile of the customers will become very important. Analytics on that data will become extremely important. And as I said earlier, past may not be, a determinant for future, right? So here in time, underwriting for the future is something that people will have to do after ascertaining the current position of the customer. And we call it in our ecosystem that I think businesses, just like stock markets have this volatility index, I think businesses would be able to predict volatility index of customers also, because not everybody has lost their money. In fact, we do see that, when we are lending currently, we do see that at least customers in our ecosystem who are coming to us again, almost 70% of them are reporting no change in income. Some people have also reported increase in income, because there are some businesses like that where the demand has gone up. I mean, some essential companies, it could be FMCG, it could be a grocer out there or a medical shop, or they have seen increase in income, right? And you would also see that a lot of the items we are all buying at MRP suddenly, the discounts have disappeared because those are essential items and you're buying at cost price. So MRP. So the margins of such people have also gone up. So some people have seen increase in demand. So having said that, I think data will tell you this. So you will be able to understand that some people have lost income, some people have seen reduction in income, some people have seen stable income, some people have seen increase in income. And that is an indicator of how they have reacted to this particular situation, right? And that's a function of demographic profile, their pedigree, what they bring, what's their businesses, etc. So it becomes very important.
Okay. And another interesting question from an audience. See, we have audience from a microfinance sector also, right? So what is the scope of fintech startups who are offering the last mile banking financial service to the underserved or unbanked in the areas where banking has not been able to reach, right? So there are certain areas, even the tower is not even working, right? Where we can't talk about the technology there. So what kind of rescue operations can be done for MFIs? Yeah.
I think, I read somewhere with a bank which has a large MFI portfolio that 100% of their customers opted for moratorium. I think it is Bandhan, right? If I may, because I think it's information. So
100%.
Yeah. So why I took this example is because MFI portfolio, by definition, will have a big impact because the entire collections also, if you see, was in-person collections, right? So
Right,
of
right.
course, people at the bottom of the pyramid have been impacted very hard, and in
Mm-hmm.
general, they don't have, let's say, a lot of reserves to go through such a
Mm-hmm.
period. Secondly, even if you want to collect, your supply chain is not attuned to making such collections because
Mm-hmm.
you have to go out there and you have to meet people and you have to collect money perhaps in cash because that's the only
Mm-hmm.
way in which a large part of the portfolio was getting collected. So I would say
Okay.
that technology has a big role, Money, in this
Mm-hmm.
regard. And I think this question, we also, focused on this when there was a question on MSME, whether will they be. So here also, if you see, the penetration of internet in rural India has gone up
Mm-hmm.
suddenly. The adoption of digital services in rural India is now outpacing the adoption rate of growth rate of such services in urban India because urban India has already been somewhere. We have 500 million people who have access to internet in the country. So I personally see that the rural segment, which is the key focus area for MFIs, will see a higher adoption to digital assets, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore solutions will be created around that because it could be vernacular solutions, it could be assisted solutions, it could be solutions which have some bit of artificial intelligence which is offered to them in a very simple manner in which they understand, but bring them
Mm-hmm.
into the fold because I think it is important for MFI institutions and the customer segment to also come into that fold. And as I said, and I can't belabor this point enough, digital assets have remained consistent. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the world has now seen such an event. So I see that there is going to be a lot of disruption, and fintech
Mm-hmm.
companies will have a large role to play there. It is not an
Okay.
easy problem to solve. I would
Mm-hmm.
also say it's historically been a difficult problem to solve. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that again, there is a pull which will be created. Today, if you speak to somebody at the absolute bottom of the pyramid also, they will understand that, okay, fine, I can perhaps learn this and then I can make it a way of my life. And I think that's the pull factor that the society at large can leverage when it comes to
Okay.
lending.
All right. All right. Mm. So that's what. Even for MFI, or it could be an NBFC, which is serving the rural segment. Uh, how the technology can be implemented to increase the collections, right? Specific any strategies that you can suggest to MFIs or the people who are focusing on the rural segments, right? So collection is the major problem. Of course, the moratorium has been given, but still they have to do collections, right? So how
Right.
technology can be implemented to improve the collections, Jitin?
Yeah. See, as I said, Money, moratorium definitely was permitted. But a
Correct.
lot of customers out there, they also understand that perhaps personal loans are the most
Mm-hmm.
expensive sort of loans if you see in the hierarchy, right?
Correct, correct,
Credit
correct.
cards and personal loans and consumer loans, etc. So a lot of customers who had some reserves, they wanted to pay on time, but
Mm-hmm.
if and only if digital collections was offered seamlessly, they could pay. Otherwise, if there was some physical way to collect, then they would, even if they would want to pay, they won't be able to pay, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think digitization in collections is extremely important, and which is also very closely linked with the new business that we are launching called Go Digital, because we
Right.
currently have 100% of our collection as digital. And
Okay.
all, if you talk about payments, I think India is by far one of the most advanced markets across the globe when it comes to payments, if not the
Right.
most advanced market already. So I
Right.
would say
Right.
that on payments and repayments specifically, there is a lot that could be done. On collections, another big change that we have seen, our own digital
Mm-hmm.
collection portfolio within the company has jumped 5x in the last 45 to
Mm.
50 days. And
Okay.
when I say digital collections, it's a mix of, let's say, non-human led collection activity, non-telecalling led collection activity, non-visit led collection activity. So there's soft
Mm-hmm.
collection, right? So within soft
Right.
collection, use of SMSs, use of WhatsApp, use of artificial intelligence, use of some bots, use of some text to speech, use of some, let's say, AI tools where you can converse with the customer. We have all of it. And we have seen that adoption of these tools and the efficacy of these tools has been very strong. So
Mm-hmm.
collections as an activity, which traditionally is or was expected to be led by telecalling or reminders, right?
Right.
Plus bulk
Right.
of it telecalling, and then last mile using some physical collection, etc., or mixed, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of potential in
Okay.
digitizing this entire supply chain, which means
Okay.
your collection management system has to be very clear. Your linkages with your LMS have to be very clear. Your communication streams have to be very clear. Your assets have to be very clear, right? You can monitor them. You should have some BI tools to see how things are. So I think all of this requires some effort, and I think businesses should invest in it for sure.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. And one more question from an audience. 1 second. Yeah. From Hitesh. Do you think P2P lending model will pick up post-COVID as demand for credit will go up?
See, P2P, I think it's an interesting question. So currently, lending community has been waiting for some capital, right? And I think it's public information that NBFCs have been asking for capital in more ways than one. So there has been slackening in the supply of money across various, let's say, across the hierarchy. P2P is a different model, wherein if I'm willing to lend money to you, I can. But I think and definitely it can go up. But the one thing which remains to be seen is the delinquency in the portfolio and the underwriting strategies and the collection mechanisms. Because whatever we understand currently, the big fear in the mind of investors is that since it's not institutional led, let's say, financing, and this is something which we have seen in China also. And if you see the P2P story in China, the way it panned out, I think the only apprehension or the big apprehension there remains about assessment of risk and collections, which I think a lot of P2P companies are trying to solve, some of them very efficiently. So it will take some time, but definitely this can be an event which can lead to that particular, stoking up such emotion. But if you also see, a lot of investors will look to conserve cash. Look, this is the time where even debt funds of institutions like Franklin have gone under, right? So debt which was supposed to be very safe, and you thought that you will get that money back, right? Currently, let's say the funds are folded and you have to wait for some time. Liquidity has been impacted, even if you get your money back. So that thought in the mind of investors also will be there. How much risk you are willing to take with your money? Do you want to maximize the returns by giving, let's say, a loan asset? I think that's the question which people will start thinking about, because lending is a serious job. It's not a by-the-way job. Of course, if you have some part of your portfolio which you want to play with for some incremental gains, of course, that can be done. But I think serious investors will look at that as well very, very carefully, because conservation of capital and growth capital, right, I think will have to be looked at differently.
All right. I think Hitesh, if you are clear, then we'll move on to the next question. Again, so how do you look at the defaults of loans done digitally? What are the legal ways that an NBFC can take to recover money? So that is the question.
I think if you see that the big question, and again, it is public information, and I have no hesitancy in discussing this, that a lot of traditional lenders have been, let's say, feeling that digital lending companies, since they do not have perhaps face-to-face or in-person meeting ecosystem, or let's say a sit down with the customer, do not understand the customer as well as they could, and therefore the defaults could be higher. Now, the fact of the matter is, definitely, if you look at the personal loan portfolio of fintech companies in general for the country, the defaults definitely for that segment would be higher than the traditional banking institutions, right?
Okay.
If you also see that almost 55 to 60% of loans which are going through fintech companies are, small ticket personal loans in general. And they are generally short term. So up to 90-day kind of loans have become very popular in the country, right? So definitely and the focus of these companies also is not the predictable customer. So the credit underserved customer, banked, but credit underserved customer. So it would be naive to say that no, the NPAs would be the same. They're not, which is why you need to risk price your product efficiently. But if nobody will lend to them, then who will? Then you will keep fighting for the same customer base. And if I'm a prime lender and I'm focused only on the prime set of customers, then I have only those many customers, right? And nobody's becoming prime overnight. Everybody starts from the first job or the first business, starts with a 15,000, 20,000 kind of a salary, because it is India. 80% of customers still make less than 25,000 rupees of income in this country. So the thing is, if you see, there has been a very tangible shift even from NBFC community in the small ticket personal loan, which is less than 25,000. There's been a very tangible shift. Overall of the PL market, more than 50% of sourcing is now happening in this business. The defaults would be higher. If you see the portfolio NPA for, let's say, Primish will be maybe 1%. For credit card, it goes up to 2 to 2.2%, something like that, right? For lending companies, it could be higher than that, definitely. But how would you recover money? The means at your disposal to recover money are the same. It's a legitimate contract. You have a customer, which you can actually, I would also argue that on the other side, digital companies like us say that, look, as a traditional company, when you sit down with me, the best that you ask me for is my tax return and my, let's say, bank statement, and then you want to understand where I work or what's my business, and you give me money. That's no ballpark. But as a digital company, let's say for somebody like us, we undertake 200 parameters before we are able to decide whether the loan should be given yes or no. Because digital assets, by definition, are larger in quantum. If you have understanding of how to use that digital asset, and it is over time, so you will keep getting better at it. You may not strike gold on day one, right? When it comes to credit underwriting decisions. But the more you do, the better you get at it. And I think that's the fundamental advantage that digital companies have, right? In this business. Because that accrual of data, that analysis of data, using some machine learning capabilities to refine your risk model on a quarterly basis, something that we do, I think is possible when you work on data. And that's the tangible advantage the Globe has seen in this business.
I think this entire session, we are talking more on the digital, right? So one of the important questions by our audience, Saket, was asking, what is actually the cost for digitizing an NBFC? So I'm a small NBFC with a 5 crore loan book, and he's asking what is the cost for digitization of the entire process. I think I should talk to Saket personally, but anyways, Jitin, you can answer to that.
Yeah, so Saket, I think the answer to this question is that this is the exact problem that we identified in the solution that I talked about, Go Digital. Look, there are 10,000 NBFCs in this country. And to start a digital business, it's a journey. First of all, the journey would require that you have the right people who have the right knowledge and the right experience. You have a hiring cycle, you have an identification cycle, there is a cost attached to it. It would not be cheap talent because digital is sought after. It's, it is what it is. So first you get people, then you have to build some digital assets, and you have to start changing the thought in the company that, look, I want to do digital. Then you start creating the ecosystem. Most companies, even some larger companies, I won't, let's say, focus on the 5 crore ticket size that Saket has mentioned, even larger NBFCs, which have 3-digit books also, I would say medium to larger, most of them are still stuck up to the application process getting digitally filled. And the feeling is, oh, I'm digital, right? But that's only loan application filling process. There is an entire supply chain decision-making process which can go digital. It's acquisition, risk assessment, service, collection, etc., etc. And I think we identified that gap in the market, which is why yesterday we launched this product called Go Digital, wherein we are going to help NBFCs digitize everything, because we're a lending company, we understand all parts of this business. To set up this business from scratch, it's not cheap. It takes time, it takes understanding, it takes, everything that is required. But I think as an ecosystem, we can help solve that problem, and we can get companies faster. So our focus is to get companies digitized within 45 days of, 45, 60 days maximum. But it also depends on the mindset of the counterparty, because digital is not something which you can buy off the shelf. Digital is your mindset, which you have to create with a lot of hard work.
I think we have come to the ending of the session. So I think we have got 15 more questions yet to be answered, but guys, please send out as an email to us. Probably I'll forward it to Jitin, and Jitin can answer that offline. And one last question, Jitin, what is the advice that you can give it to the NBFC founders or NBFC team who's as an audience?
See, I would say that, I'll start with the first question that you had asked, that is it a good time or a bad time, right? I would say that definitely in the short term, there are, strong headwinds as we see. And from our perspective, all of us are in the same boat as in the lending community. We have a responsibility towards customers. We have a responsibility towards, shareholders, because we need to make sure that the businesses keep running. It's a very, very important business for the country at large. NBFCs are the spinal cord. I would say they have over time become spinal cords, working shoulder to shoulder with banks, going where banks don't or banks can't. So supporting the entire journey of credit penetration in this country, right? So I would say that in the near term, we all have to be very conscious of the reality that we are faced with. It's not going to disappear overnight, which means that we have to conserve resources to make sure that we get through this. but not losing sight of future, because that is, I would say, not so positive. So we are in a positive situation overall. The country, I think India still is one of the countries which is expected to grow despite whatever the world has seen. And that is a testimony to the resilience that we bring as a country. And I think that's something which is being witnessed by the world, because the world also understands that, right? And we should leverage that. And there is going to be a focus on localization, as our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, has launched. Let's be vocal about local. I think there's going to be a lot of activity which will start in this country about that. Understanding how self-reliance is important, so manufacturing can grow, lending companies will get opportunities there. So conserve in the short term, withstand the pressures, make sure the important constituents of business keep tight, but not lose sight of future. And I think that's what we all should try to do. That will be my advice to everybody, to the brethren in the community. That's the advice.
That's awesome, Jitin. Actually, thank you so much for answering all the questions very patiently, Jitin. I believe that it's going to be a really eye-opener for all the audience.